I'd like to say congratulations to Samantha. Yeah. All right, Sammy and Brad got engaged this last week, and she crawled under the seat. No. Super excited for the two of you, and we're back here. You guys are like headed to marriage here, so that's fantastic. Very excited for you. And glad to have all of you here today. Proverbs chapter 4, let's turn there as we get started with choosing the right ship. Choosing the right ship. And I hope that title will make more sense to you as we go through. But if you weren't here last time, we are talking about the voyage of the heart and how to pursue a relationship with someone with God's wisdom, rather than the wisdom of the world or just kind of floating along doing our own thing. Let's do it God's way. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 1 says, "Hear ye children the instruction of a father, and attend to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Forsake ye not my law. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also and said unto me, Let thine heart retain my words, keep my commandments, and live. Get wisdom, and get understanding. Forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee." Who's the her there? Wisdom, right. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. Now, I would like to read it all, but let's just jump down to verse 11. "I've taught thee in the way of wisdom." That's exactly what we're talking about here. That's what we're calling the right ship, the way of wisdom. "I have taught thee in the way of wisdom. I have led thee in right paths. When thou goest, thy steps shall not be straitened. When thou runnest, thou shalt not stumble. Take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men." Choosing the right ship. We're laying out a couple of possible courses here, and that is the way of wisdom or the raft of rebellion, right? And they go two very different ways depending on how we proceed. Now, our study here is supposed to provide us with a suggested map, right? This is how you could do it in a scriptural and wise way. That's our first blank, I guess. We could just jump into our notes. A wise and scriptural way. Now, this isn't the only map. This is not the only way to pursue a right relationship. I said last time, sometimes your family might have already cultivated a scriptural path for a relationship. Those that don't do it exactly the way that I'm setting forth for you doesn't mean that they're necessarily wrong or unscriptural. We shouldn't say, oh, they deviated from what pastor said right there, therefore they're in sin. That's not what this is about, okay? So we're not here to kind of compare one person's relationship with another person's relationship and make sure that they're all, right in our line. What we want is a model that is both scriptural and wise, right? Right? We all on the same page? Yes. Good. Now, it's good to remember that there's a difference between someone who there's a difference between unwise and sinful. Have you ever considered that before? That sometimes people will pursue a certain course that might not be the wisest path, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a sinful path. Okay? So by God's grace, many times relationships end up where they need to end up, and they can even remain pure along the way, even though you would look at it and say, ooh, you kind of put yourself in positions there that you maybe shouldn't have. You expose yourself to more temptation than you needed to. That might not have been the wisest way to go about it, but that doesn't mean that it's sinful. Okay? So if you're kind of comparing this with your own life, your own maybe relationships that you've already had, don't get defensive when someone says, well, what's wrong with this way? Right? What's wrong with the way I'm doing it? Ask yourself this, is this the wisest way? Is this the wisest way that I could go about it? This is good advice for life in general, okay? Don't get defensive when people try to give you counsel or advice and say, well, what's wrong with this? No. What's the wisest way that you can go about living life? When people neglect the way of wisdom, they often set out with the right intentions, but end up in sin and shipwreck with many regrets. Sin and shipwreck. I'll turn to 1 Timothy 1, but I need to get a couple people on other verses here. So, Cameron, would you look at Proverbs 16, 17 through 20, and then for the Colton, Proverbs 12, and Brandon, Proverbs 20, verse 5, right? Caleb, Proverbs 11, 14. Who's next? Levi, Psalm 25, 9. And then in the back, Thomas, Deuteronomy 5, 16. And Eli, you good for one?
Yeah.
Hebrews 13, 17. Okay, that goes through a whole bunch of them there. So 1 Timothy 1:19 says this, holding faith and a good conscience, which some having put away concerning faith have made shipwreck. You get away from scriptural and wise principles. You might embark with all the best intentions, and you're telling yourselves, hey, we're going to do this right. But if you're in departure from wisdom, then you're going to end up in shipwreck. Okay, that's just the way that this works out. So it has to be very intentional. So let's assume we're ready to leave Friendship Cove. That's what we emphasized last time. Just be in no rush, no hurry to leave the friend stage. But there will probably come a time in your life where you're interested in somebody and you are ready to become more than just friends. That's the next blank on your notes. You're ready to become more than just friends. There are lots of ways to leave Friendship Cove, and most of them are very unwise. Most of them are not a good path. So we want something scriptural and wise. What kind of ship will you choose? What kind of relationship, right? What kind of relationship will you choose? Will it be the raft of rebellion that we've got indicated here? The raft of rebellion is fueled by pride. Pride and something else, ignorance. Those two things go hand in hand. Cameron's got this next passage. If you guys want to follow along, it's not that far away, Proverbs 16. And Cameron, if you would read from verses 17 through 20.
The highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He that keepeth his way preserveth his soul. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be of an humble spirit with the lowly, than to divide the spoil with the proud. He that handleth the matter wisely shall find good, and whoso trusteth in the Lord, happy is he.
Right. And verse 25 says, there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Now, pride and ignorance, rebellion, it fuels this thought inside of us that, hey, I'm old enough to make my own decisions. I can go my own way. I don't need anyone else's opinion or input on my life. You know what that is? That's pride. That's rebellion. Now you might be thinking that, and you need to check your heart. Just because you've reached a certain level, age in life, doesn't mean that you don't need input and counsel in your life anymore, right? Colton, I think you've got Proverbs 12:15.
12:15, you said?
Yeah.
The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise.
Yeah. And so sometimes it's that way. Sometimes the more ignorant side of rebellion is, well, why do we even have to talk about all of this? I mean, if it's the right person, isn't it all just going to work out the way that it's supposed to? No, it doesn't work out without wisdom. Another person that's ignorantly rebellious might say, well, I think that since we're saved, the Holy Spirit will give us all of the accountability and the direction that we need. We don't need other people involved or giving us help or counsel in our relationship. Don't you trust us? Right? This is the language of a manipulative rebel that says to their authorities, to their counselors, don't you trust us? The simple, blunt answer, no. Because none of us should trust ourselves and our own flesh. Yes, I trust the Holy Spirit, of course. But guess what? I don't always obey the Holy Spirit. He's trustworthy. I'm not. And you're not either. Don't trust your own flesh. And so don't be ignorant about this and think that you don't need anybody's help. You do need some accountability and some counsel, which is the way of wisdom. The way of wisdom. Wisdom is having the humility to acknowledge that you don't know everything, that you don't see everything, and that you could use some help from others. Proverbs 20, verse 5.
Counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out.
A man of understanding will draw it out. That means this: you need to take the initiative to invite that counsel into your life. There's some action you need to take to recruit some helpers. So what are we going to call this? Number one, get a good crew of counselors on board. The raft of rebellion, you're taking off just the two of you. But the way of wisdom has a crew. There are other people involved in helping this relationship go well. The way of wisdom is made safe by many good counselors. Caleb, I think you've got Proverbs 11:14.
It says, where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety.
There is safety, right. That's what I want, and that's what I want for you. I want you to pursue a relationship that is spiritually safe. And that safety is by counselors. Begin with prayer. Ask the Lord to guide you and reveal His will. Psalm 25:9.
The meek will He guide in judgment, and the meek will He teach His way.
Right. So you've got to be humble enough, meek enough to ask God for some leadership and some guidance. God has wisdom for us, but we've got to be willing to receive it. And the way that you say that you receive it is you ask for it, right? That's what the meek person will do. Lord, I need help here. I need some guidance, and He'll guide you. Then talk to your parents. Talk to your parents about the person you're interested in. Ask them what they think about pursuing a relationship with him or her. So this assumes a couple of things. This assumes that your parents are a part of your life. Okay? That's what we talked about last time in Friendship Cove, was developing that relationship between you and your parents so that you can have these kinds of conversations. Now, if you're thinking, well, I'm not living at home anymore. I'm kind of beyond that stage. I'm my own person now. Do I really have to talk to my parents about this? We're not talking about authority as much as we are counsel at that stage. Okay? While you're living at home, you're really under their authority. But if you're your own person, you still need their counsel. And you say, well, what if they're not saved? What if they're not spiritual? They still have some years of experience and life. And I would say that, and even an unsaved, unspiritual parent, one that has at least goodwill and love towards you, wants the best for you and would be able to point out, like, if an unsaved, unspiritual parent says, oh, I don't think that's a good person for you, there's something bad wrong. And you need to take stock of the wisdom that they give. Get them on board with the relationship. Deuteronomy 5:16.
Honor thy father and thy mother as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
Right. So honor goes along with the promise of that it may go well with thee. If you want life to go well for you, part of that is making sure you're honoring your parents and giving weight to their counsel. Talk to your pastor. Talk to your pastor. Listen to what he says. Hebrews 13:17.
Obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls as they do that must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you.
Right. So pastors, spiritual leaders in your life, it says they watch for your souls. They want what's best for you. And so, again, it's not just like, well, you've got to do everything I say and I'm going to micromanage your life and tell you who you're supposed to marry. No, it's like this. Pastor, I've noticed so-and-so. I'm kind of praying about maybe a relationship there. Do you have any thoughts on that? Right? And I might have some thoughts about you that we're going to talk about, right? What you need to work on before you get into a relationship. I might have some thoughts about that other person and say, I'm not so sure that's a good idea for you, at least at this stage. Listen, and I might not even give you all the reasons, right? But you need to listen because there's something there. Again, parents, pastors, we want what's best for you. We're not trying to just keep you alone and miserable for the rest of your life. We want it to go well with you. And so trust that and listen and realize that you may not have the breadth of experience and foresight that other people do in your life that can help you to see from angles that you have not even considered yet. So let's say we've taken these steps so far. You've prayed about it. You've got peace from God to pursue this. You've talked to your parents about this person and about getting into a relationship, and they're like, sounds like a good idea. Let's pursue that. You talk to pastor. Pastor gives the thumbs up. Okay, what's next? What's next? Okay, this is for the guys. Talk to her parents, and especially her dad. Talk to her parents and especially her dad. Ask for permission to pursue a relationship with his daughter. That was a terrifying phone call that I made. We were at a stage where I knew that we were about to be more than just friends, and so I got her dad's number, and I sat there in my car, and I prayed, and I sweated, and I and I dialed the number, and I said, please don't pick up, please don't. He picked up the phone, and I introduced myself. This is much better to do in person, if possible, right? Much better to do in person. Just the way it was, long distance and so on, we did it over the phone. But ask for permission to pursue a relationship with his daughter. Now, here's an important qualifier for all this. All of these conversations should happen, what do you think? Before. Before you have the conversation with each other. Before you have the conversation with each other. Don't go express your interest to the other person or discuss, hey, what do you think about going out? What do you think about having a relationship? Until you know all these other authorities and counselors are already on board the ship. They're on board with the direction that you're going. Now, again, I'll say this. Not everybody does it this way, right? Not everybody has done it this way. But I would say it's wise. It's the wisest course. Because when this is skipped, what tends to happen is you drift out of Friendship Cove, rather than, where am I at? There we go. I must have been a little behind. You drift out of Friendship Cove rather than a purposeful embarking on a relationship. When you talk to each other first about, and you find out, hey, we like each other, we want to pursue this relationship. All of a sudden, you are making important bonds there already. If you do that before you get your kind of counselors and your authorities on board, you're not in a good position to heed their counsel. So if you get the cart before the horse here, and you already know that you're interested in each other and you want a relationship with each other, and all of a sudden a parent or a pastor comes along and says, I don't think that's a real good idea right now. Man, you got yourself in a pinch. How do you back out now? Now, you know what you're doing? You're setting yourself up for rebellion. Does that make sense? You got to get the order of these things right in order to put yourself in, because otherwise you got to go back and say, yeah, I changed my mind. I don't think we should. That's the worst right there. Man, I don't know how that's going to work out for you. The easiest way is you're going to have to throw somebody under the bus. And that's not good either. It's not good either to go to the other person and say, well, pastor thinks we shouldn't. Well, now what have you done to that authority in that other person's eyes? You know, so it's just not a good direction to go. So try to get out in front of it, get everybody on board before the both of you board. So that might mean you go through all of these steps not even fully knowing if that person wants to have a relationship with you. It's very possible. It could be you go through all these steps and you get a no. Now, if you can read social cues, you should have some indication, right? If this person doesn't know your name, you probably don't even need to have all these conversations yet. You know? There's certain things that are assumed, I suppose, here in this lesson. But a path of rebellion assumes that you can make all of these kinds of decisions yourself, and you don't need anyone else's blessing or input. Again, Proverbs 15:12 says, a scorner loveth not one that reproveth him, neither will he go unto the wise. He won't even go to the wise, because there's the potential they're going to tell him something that you don't want to hear. Okay, get a good crew on board. Then plot a good direction with your compass. Plot a good direction with the compass. Turn back to Proverbs 4. Proverbs 4 and verse 26. Ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. Turn not to the right hand nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. This is about looking forward, okay? What direction are we headed here? Ponder the path of thy feet. That means not just where you're at right now, but where is it leading you? Where are you pointing this relationship? What are your intentions? The question is why? Why do you want to go out with this person? And that's a question the world never really answers. The only answer they might have is that it's fun, right? Well, we're just hanging out because it's fun. Well, fun, there's a fine line between fun and pleasure. A pursuit of fun will eventually drift you towards dangerous, sinful pleasure. Well, you say, well, we just want to get to know each other better. Okay, that's a good purpose, but to what end? Why do you want to get to know each other better? The direction of the compass needs to be pointed towards a possible future what? Possible future marriage. Possible future marriage. The dating relationship, Christian dating, if that's our term we're working with here, it's to discover more about the person so that you can determine whether he or she is God's will for you to marry. Now, sometimes that gets a bad rap, because people say, well, I don't want to like commit to that just in order to go out with somebody. It's not the same thing. This is not a proposal. Right? Okay, this is not a proposal. You may very well discover some things over the course of a relationship where you realize, I don't think this is God's will. I don't think we're going to pursue that. And we're going to talk about that eventually, that there's an exit strategy to a relationship if it's not God's will. You're not stuck forever with this person just because you said yes to go out with them. No, it's setting a direction and a purpose for which the relationship exists. If you say, man, I can't even fathom marriage yet, I don't think we should even be thinking about that. Okay, then you don't need to be thinking about dating.
Right.
If you can't fathom marrying this person, don't get into a relationship with the person. Even if you're attracted to them, choose to remain nothing more than friends until you're ready to actually contemplate. This could be heading towards marriage. Pastor Doss had this aphorism, this statement that he would often say: every date is a possible mate. Every date is a possible mate. The raft of rebellion, very content to just kind of float along and go with the flow with no clear direction. Here's the problem if you don't have any clear direction. The flesh has a current. There is an underlying current where the flesh will pull you towards sinful pursuits, towards sinful pleasures, even if you had every intention of doing it right. You say, well, no, we're going to do it right. Okay, what's your direction here? Are you aiming towards a pure marriage? Okay, well then you've got a good direction plotted. Well, I don't know, we're just kind of hanging out and we'll see where it goes. Your flesh is pulling you, even though you don't even realize it, towards a destination you don't want to be at. Okay. All right, then. So you've got everybody on board. You have a clear focus and direction for what the relationship is aiming at, potentially. Now, number 3, invite her on the journey. Invite her on the journey. This means having a serious conversation. Not just a, hey, you want to hang out sometime? It deserves more than that. The casual hangout, you can do that without permission in a group. You can just be in groups of people where they are and where activities are happening, and you can be around somebody and get to know them in a casual way, just from Friendship Cove without any kind of serious conversation happening. But if you want to be more than friends, it requires a conversation, a real one. Now you're going to ask if she'd actually be interested in pursuing a relationship. Make sure your parents are aware of the conversation. Again, get them on board first. They need to know that it's happening. They need to know that you're going to be talking about this. You say, how do I say this? All right, you better think that through before you start the conversation, right? And talk to somebody, get some counsel. Tell her maybe you've been praying about this, seeking counsel, and that you'd like to get to know her better as something more than just friends. Now, all of this brings a question in our modern era. Why am I emphasizing that the young man initiate the relationship? Anybody have a thought on that? I probably have most of it written out, but why am I emphasizing that? Because we live in a day when girls ask guys out all the time.
Right.
So why, Brother Mark?
See, because guys are less emotional, less attached that way. So they can, it's better to have them do the discussing with parents and have the girl on board last. Because that way if the girl's not on board, it's easier for the guy, not the girl.
Interesting. That if she does all that legwork ahead of time, it's going to be more emotionally devastating to get a no. Okay, I can see that for sure. Thomas?
Positions them as a leader.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I had in the notes here, that it positions him as a future leader in that relationship. And if she's putting the first foot forward, dragging him into this relationship, you've already got the roles backwards for a future marriage. Okay. So, young ladies, you're interested in the guy. He's not making any moves. He's not talking to your parents. He's not asking you. He's just sitting there clueless, as guys do sometimes. Nothing. What do you do, young ladies, when he's not making a move and you feel like, man, this should be happening, right? Pray. Yes. Pray. Be good over here, guys. Pray and talk with your parents about him. Don't go to him. Talk to your parents about it. It helps if they know him, right? That's probably making a little assumption there that they are aware of who this guy is. But still, even if they don't, you can get some counsel. I want to encourage you. Here's wisdom. Don't flirt or dangle or hint that you're available. Don't manipulate behind the scenes. Like, hey, could you go tell his friend that I might be interested in him asking me out something? You know, so you got like 3 people involved in getting this guy a clue that there's an interest there. Just don't worry about that. If this is going to head towards marriage one day, he needs to be the leader. Okay, patient. Be patient. Be patient. Stay focused on being the person God wants you to be as a single young lady. We're going to spend more time in 1 Corinthians 7 a little later on, probably the last lesson. But in 1 Corinthians 7, there's this interesting principle here, and it says, there is a difference also between a wife and a virgin, or a single gal. The unmarried woman careth for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she that is married careth for the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And he says, and this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, and that ye may attend upon the Lord without distraction. Mm-hmm. That is one of the wonderful features of singlehood, if you will embrace it, is that it enables you to just serve God without any other distraction. All right? So be patient. Be patient and stay focused on being where you're supposed to be. Now, in some cases, the father of the girl might decide to approach the guy. Okay? If he's especially clueless, or just not interested, who knows? But the father, if he thinks it's a good plan, a good idea, he may approach the guy and say, hey, I've got a thought for you, and try to sort of set something up. If anybody's going to set you up, let parents be a help in that setup, right? That's not an arranged marriage. That's letting a conversation happen man to man, rather than you kind of availing yourself out there. Does this make sense to you, the way I'm presenting it? Any questions so far on that? Where it seems confusing or weird? Some of this is going to be peculiar, especially in a world where there's worldly model, that's set out before us all the time. But I'm telling you, you just need to allow him to be the guy. I would have a hard time with my daughters if the guy could not initiate and have a man-to-man conversation.
Right.
I'd have a very hard time imagining him as being the kind of husband and leader that he's going to need to be in her life. Okay, so guys, take that for what it's worth as a father, from a father. Okay. All right. So where are we at? Now, The young lady has a decision to make. She's got a decision to make. Ladies, it's okay to ask for time to pray about this, especially if he's been doing all this legwork and thinking and praying and counseling, you know, and you haven't yet. It's possible that you're not quite to the same page. Always okay to ask for more time. You don't have to give a yes or no at the moment. If you have not already done so, talk to your parents and pastor before agreeing to the relationship. Just say, hey, I'm going to have to chat with my parents about this and get some counsel. And ladies, you have every right to say what? You can say no. You can say no. Even if, I've got this in the notes, even if your authorities have given their blessing. Let's say dad and mom are all for it, pastor's giving you the thumbs up, and everybody's for it, and you're just not really interested. Say no. That's okay. You've got that right, because you're the one that's got to live with this decision, potentially for the rest of your life. So be honest, but please don't rip his guts out in the process, you know? No, you're hideous. Why would you ever think that this would go? That's why guys don't ask, right? That's we're afraid of rejection. But be honest, but be kind. So young ladies, here's a question: what if a guy hits on you and asks you out? Because this is probably going to happen over the course of your life. Ever happened, ladies? Yeah. And you know either you're not interested, or you know he's not saved, not going the same direction. He's not really interested in pursuing a scriptural relationship. Okay, what are you going to do? Well, say no. Politely turn him down. Don't get on that ship. Just say, oh, what could it hurt? No, every date is a possible mate. Don't get on that ship unless you can see yourself marrying this person and being scriptural in doing so. Never let a guy pressure you to do anything sinful or anything you don't want to do. Never let that pressure happen. And let your parents or your pastor be the bad guy if you want. It's totally okay to fall back on dad and say, Dad, this guy is pestering me. He keeps asking me out. He wants to pursue something. I'm not interested. Dads know how to deal with such things. It won't be a problem anymore. In fact, people will be wondering where he went. Not quite. Internet, don't take me seriously. But never let anyone pressure you to do anything that you don't want to do. And it's okay, and if you're a teenager, this is really easy. Oh, my parents don't let me date.
Right.
Super easy. Throw it on your parents. You might be fully on board with the decision, but you can easily say, no, my parents don't let me. Can't do it. Great. That's awesome. All right. Having a real relationship at the outset of having a real conversation, at the outset of the relationship is wise and respectful to each other. Otherwise, sometimes if it's just, oh, we're just hanging out and we're not actually defining what it is, both people, one or both, find themselves suddenly out of Friendship Cove. They've drifted out somewhere and they are stuck in this relationship that they really never even signed up for. So have the conversation. That's showing respect to each other. Then cautiously leave Friendship Cove. Everybody's on board. You've got your crew, your counselors. Everybody is for it. You have prayed about this. You have had the conversation with one another. Now you've invited her on board. Cautiously leave Friendship Cove. And now this requires what's next, okay? Another conversation with your crew together as a couple. Now you go, I would love to see the couple, the guy and the girl, and their parents all together in a room. That would be ideal. Mm-hmm. To get the whole crew in a room and say, okay, what's this going to look like? Let's have a conversation about charting this relationship and giving some help and some counsel. And so come humbly to them, inviting their help and counsel and accountability on the journey. Ask for their help in establishing scripturally wise boundaries. Boundaries. And we're going to talk about that more probably next week. Make sure that there are wise people keeping their eyes on your relationship to help hold you accountable, to point out warnings and wisdom along the way. Have you ever heard of love goggles or love is blind or something like that? That's a real thing. And so that's why you need other people and their eyes on the relationship to help you see what you don't see. Just assume you're blind in some areas. That's humility, right? Proverbs 9:8, it says, reprove not a scorner, lest he hate thee. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love thee. Give instruction to a wise man, he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. Don't be defensive when someone gives you a warning. When they put up a red flag, when they say, hey, have you considered this? Don't get all defensive and say, you just hate me. You don't want me to have anything in life. No, they love you. They want the very best for you. They want to go well with you. Don't get defensive. So, as you leave the friend stage and embark on a relationship, do it the right way. Choose the right ship. The way of wisdom, not the raft of rebellion. Any quick questions? Anything unclear?